Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
You talking to me?
What do you reckon? Who else he talking to?
Oh, keep it down, boys. I'm still a bit hungover after last night.
Yeah, that Last Supper nearly was me Last Supper.
Hold your horses. I'm doing all the heavy lifting here.
Anyway, what's this bloody cross business about?
Oh, they're going to take me up the top of this hill and whack me up on it.
What are they going to use?
Nails.
You're kidding.
What?
No, they're going to nail me up there, and get this, they've only got 3 nails.
Hang on a sec. If you're getting nailed to the cross, you won't be able to play on Saturday.
Oh,
Jesus.
Jesus, mate! We're going to get crucified!
Sorry, guys, I can't help. I need a miracle to get me out of this.
Hang on. I got an idea. Righto, you blokes. Bring it in. That's it. Come on. Up you come. Now, down tools. Unfortunately, I'll have to shut yous down for an unsafe work site. Righto? See this wooden strut and crossbeam? OK? It's not up to code. You know?
Pays to be in the union.
No. What say we have an extended smoke out? And Jesus,
Yeah?
how's about you turn some water into wine?
Be happy to.
Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
So the first line here, guys, is Jesus Christ, what are you doing? And I'll go over the first sentence here, Jesus Christ, literally the name of Jesus Christ. But this is often used in English to express shock and awe and surprise, you know, like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, what the hell? So they're making a joke here by actually saying Jesus Christ to Jesus Christ. The next part, what are you doing? You'll notice there at the end, instead of saying doing with this G, we say doing. So we don't actually pronounce the G quite often when we're speaking more informally. However, at the bottom here where I've got the more proper formal English, you'll note that if you're writing this, you will always write doing.
Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
You talking to me?
So you'll note in this one, guys, you talking to me? It's a question. It's raising at the end. Are you talking to me? Is the correct way that we would say it with that are there at the start. But quite often that's dropped and we just, instead of saying any are or is there at the start, you'll just use the pronoun and then follow with the sentence. Talking, again, he's dropped the G, so he's just saying talking. And you'll notice there too that that too has become more of an sound that bounces off the end there. So instead of saying, are you talking to me? We say, you talking na me. So when it's said quickly, it becomes, you talking to me? You talking to me? Instead of, are you talking to me or you talking to me? It's just, you talking to me? That bit sort of bounces, na me. But again, in proper English, we would say, are you talking to me?
You talking to me?
What do you reckon? Who else he talking to?
The first sentence, what do you reckon, is a rhetorical question. It's kind of like he's asking sarcastically, well, what do you think? Who do you think I'm talking to? Because Jesus is the only one there in front of him. So he's like, well, what do you think? What do here has become a whatter. What do you think? What do you reckon? Whatter. So that's quite often a way that Australians would change what do. We would say whatter instead. Reckon is a pretty common verb you'll hear in Australia where we use that instead of the word or the verb to think. So what do you reckon? I reckon. Yeah, he reckons. That's what you'll hear quite a bit instead of think. And the second sentence here, who else he talking to, is another way of saying who else is he talking to. And so to start, that is kind of gets dropped. You'll often hear who else he talking to or who else he talking to. Also, the he there has changed and no longer has the H at the front. It kind of bounces off the else. So it's like, who else he talking to? Who else he talking to? You don't really say that H. Who else he talking to? The talking has dropped that G again. Talking. And the to has lost the T at the start. There's no T. And instead it bounces off that N. So that N kind of follows off onto the O and it becomes who else he talking to? Who else he talking to? Who else he talking to?
What do you reckon? Who else he talking to?
Oh, keep it down, boys. I'm still a bit hungover after last night.
The first sentence there, oh, keep it down, boys, hasn't really changed from how you would write it formally. And keep it down means keep the sound down. Can you keep the volume down? He's saying in the following sentence, I'm still a bit hungover after last night. That's suggesting that he's got a headache because he drank too much. So he's saying, keep it down, boys, because he's got a headache and the noise is hurting his head. Oh, keep it down, boys. And boys is just like mates or guys. It's just another way that you would refer to your friends, especially from guys. Obviously, girls wouldn't say that to girls, but guys and boys and mates will often say that to one another. I'm still a bit hungover after last night. That hasn't really changed either from the correct way that you would say this in English. And hungover again is just that feeling you get the next day if you've drunk a lot the night before. To be hungover is to have drunk too much and you wake up the next day and it's hung as in hang, the word hang. So it's the past tense, to be hungover.
Oh, keep it down, boys. I'm still a bit hungover after last night.
Yeah, that last supper nearly was me last supper.
In this one, guys, yeah, that last supper nearly was me last supper. Supper, he's playing a joke because the Last Supper, obviously from the depiction of Jesus and his followers having supper or the meal before bedtime or late at night, a late night meal. He's saying that the Last Supper nearly was his last supper. So he's making a play on words there, saying that because they got so drunk, the supper that they had last night, the Last Supper with Jesus, nearly was his last supper because he almost drank so much he died, effectively. That's what he's insinuating. That's what he's suggesting there. I might add too, guys, that in Australian English, and this happens quite a bit, we often turn my into me. So instead of saying my, they'll say me and then the thing that belongs to me. So that Last Supper nearly was me last supper is another way of saying, an incorrect, informal way of saying, that Last Supper nearly was my last supper. So you'll often hear that in Australian English. It's a very bogan way of speaking, but it's also a very Australian way of speaking too.
Yeah, that last supper nearly was me last supper.
Hold your horses. I'm doing all the heavy lifting here.
So hold your horses is an expression in English, guys. It's often said to ask someone to wait, to hold on. Can you hold your horses? So literally kind of gives you that picture in your head of hold on to your horses by the reins and we're not leaving yet. In the second part there, I'm doing all the heavy lifting here. Again, he's kind of making a joke because this is an expression in English that you would use to be doing all the heavy lifting to suggest that you're doing all the hard work. And he's making a joke there because he's carrying the cross on his back, something that's incredibly heavy, that he's not only doing all the hard work, but he's literally lifting something heavy. So that's the joke that's being made there. And so you'll notice in this sentence, guys, in the last one, the G's have both been dropped from the ing words. So instead of saying, I'm doing all the heavy lifting here, he says, I'm doing all the heavy lifting here. Hold your horses. I'm doing all the heavy lifting here.
Hold your horses. I'm doing all the heavy lifting here.
Anyway, what's this bloody cross business about?
In this sentence, guys, he says, anyway, what's this bloody cross business about? What he's trying to say here is, bloody, for example, is just sort of another way of accentuating something bad. So it's sort of a way of making things a little bit more rude. It's a little more, again, informal, the kind of way you would speak with your mates. So to emphasize the fact that this guy's Australian, he's thrown in the word bloody there. Cross, he's talking about the cross that Jesus is bearing. And when he says business, cross business, he means sort of like, why are you carrying the cross? What's the excuse? What's the reason? What is the thing related to why is this happening? What's the business here? Tell me about why you're carrying this cross. So that's why he says, what's this bloody cross business about? So it's sort of asking him, can you tell me why you're carrying this cross?
Anyway, what's this bloody cross business about?
Oh, they're going to take me up the top of this hill and whack me up on it.
So there's quite a few things happening in this sentence, guys. The first being going to has turned into gonna. Instead of going to, it's become gonna. They're gonna take. After that, he says, they're gonna take me up the top of the hill. Quite often in Aussie English, we drop that to in those sorts of things, especially if you're speaking a lot more informally, a lot more colloquially with your mates. You'll say, you know, he's taking us up there instead of he's taking us up to there. He's taking us up and then the location without that preposition to. So he's taking us up the top of the hill. The and there has kind of dropped that D. So they're not really saying the D. He's saying instead, up the top of this hill and whack me up on it. And whack me up on it. But it's and if you were to speak properly. Also, whack me up on it. He's talking about whacking himself up on it, getting put on it. So quite a bit in Australian English, we use the verb to whack when we're talking about putting something. So we could use whack to mean, can you whack some clothes on? Can you put some clothes on? Can you whack a new paint job on the wall in the house? Would mean, can you put some more paint on? Can you whack on another layer? Can you paint another layer of paint on there? Can you whack these planks of wood on the back of your car and bring them to my house? That's like, can you put them in the back of your car and bring them to my house? So that's to whack. We often use the verb to whack to mean to put.
Oh, they're going to take me up the top of this hill and whack me up on it.
What are they going to use?
Nails.
In this sentence, it's a good example of gonna again. So instead of saying going to, they've said gonna. What are they going to use? What are they going to use? And instead of saying what are, it kind of gets shortened to what are. What are. What are they going to use? What are they going to use? But if you were to write this, it's always going to be what are they going to use? What are they going to use?
What are they going to use?
Nails.
So nails doesn't really change in this case, guys. It's just the little sharp iron tools that you use to sort of hammer into two bits of wood to keep them together.
Use?
Nails.
You're kidding.
What?
So you're kidding is kind of used to say you're joking, you can't be serious, that can't be true. And the other guy just says, what? So that's just another way of asking someone to sort of clarify. It's like, what? You can't be serious. You got to be kidding.
You're kidding.
What?
No, they're going to nail me up there. And get this, they've only got 3 nails.
So in this one, guys, he said nah, as in he's not kidding. It's not a joke. He's serious. They're going to use nails. Again, he said instead of going to, it's become gonna. So instead of going to, they're gonna nail me up there, not they're going to nail me up there. And at the end there, when he says, and get this, we often use get or to get something, as in to understand something, to realize something, to know what's happening. So he's saying, and get this, sort of like he's introducing the next point. You're never going to believe this. Get this. And the point is, they've only got 3 nails. So it's kind of like, that's all they have. That's a bit of a joke. So they're going to use 1 nail on each hand and 1 on his feet.
No, they're going to nail me up there. And get this, they've only got 3 nails.
Hang on a sec. If you're getting nailed with a cross, you won't be able to play on Saturday.
So we often say hang on a sec or hang on a min or hang on a moment, and the sec is just short for second, and the same in the case of min, it's short for minute. And in the second part there, instead of saying if you're getting nailed to the cross, he says if you're getting nailed to the cross, so that G at the back of getting has become dropped. It's been chucked away and it's only getting. So the G's been dropped and it's getting. Nailed to the cross. You won't be able to play on Saturday. So instead of saying won't to with the T there at the end, he's actually just dropped the T and he's saying you won't be able to play on Saturday. That's another common thing that we say. I think in all kinds of English, you'll just hear won't. It's sort of dropped off. We don't sort of say anything after the T. We don't aspirate it. So we don't say won't to. We just say won't. So that T's been dropped. And you'll also hear him turn the to, be able to play on Saturday, into be able to play on Saturday. Be able to play on Saturday. Be able to play on Saturday. And so what he's talking about here too, with the playing on Saturday, it suggests that he's going to be playing in some sort of a team sport. So like a football match, a soccer match, could be any sort of sport that involves him with those guys. And most sports like that are played on the weekends, on Saturdays in Australia.
Hang on a sec. If you're getting nailed with a cross, you won't be able to play on Saturday.
Oh, Jesus, mate!
Then they say together, oh, Jesus, mate. And again, this is kind of a joke because we could say like Jesus Christ, as in shock and awe or surprise. You could just say, oh, Jesus. So it's making a joke again because that is actually Jesus. They're saying, oh, Jesus, mate.
Oh, Jesus, mate! We're gonna get crucified!
After that, they say we're gonna get crucified. Again, that G has been dropped as well as the to, and it's just gonna. Instead of going to, it's gonna get crucified. To get crucified in this example is actually an expression that's quite often used in English, to be crucified for something or to get crucified. It means that you're just going to be murdered. You're going to be really done over. You're going to get in a lot of trouble. You're going to get smashed. So in the case here, they're talking about when they play that game of football or the game of soccer, whatever the sport is, their team is going to get crucified, meaning they're going to get beaten because Jesus, the guy they're talking to, isn't going to be able to play. He's not going to be able to play, so they're going to get crucified.
We're gonna get crucified!
Sorry, guys, I can't help. I need a miracle to get me out of this.
So then he says, sorry, guys, I can't help. I'd need a miracle to get me out of this. Sorry, guys, I can't help. There's nothing really there that's been changed. Guys is just quite often used to refer to multiple people, multiple men. He's just saying, sorry, mates. Sorry, guys. Sorry, my friends. In the second sentence, to need a miracle is an expression that's quite often used in English to mean you need something miraculous, a miracle, to happen. Something crazy is going to have to happen in order for me to get out of this, so for him to escape. And again, that's kind of a joke because he's Jesus, he's the Lord, and so that miracle there is another way that we're playing sort of a bit of a play on words to be funny. And you'll notice that the out of has become out to. Out of this. Out of this has become out to this. So, sorry guys, I can't help. I'd need a miracle to get me out of this. Out of this.
Sorry, guys, I can't help. I need a miracle to get me out of this.
Hang on, I got an idea. Righto, you blokes. Bring it in, that's it. Come on, up you come. Now, down tools. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to shut yous down for an unsafe work site. All right? See this wooden strut and crossbeam? Okay? It's not up to code. See that?
The next section's pretty big, but I'll try and get through it bit by bit. In the first bit, he says, hang on, I got an idea. And he's dropped the I've. So instead of saying I've, he just says, I got an idea. That often happens in Aussie English. It's just sort of lazy English. I got an idea instead of I've got an idea. Righto, you blokes. Righto is just another way of sort of saying, okay, all right. Okay, you guys. All right, you guys. You blokes. Bloke is just another way of saying guys, dudes, mates, everyone. He's just talking to those guys. Righto, you blokes. Then when he says, bring it in, that's it. Come on, up you come. Bring it in just means everyone come on in. Everyone get closer. I've got something to tell you. I've got an announcement to make. That's it. Come on, come on, move. Have a go. Let's do it. And then up you come. Up you come. Again, it's just bring it in. Come on, let's go. Come up to me. Come on, up you come. Then when he says tools down, I'm not a construction worker or a tradie, but I'd imagine that tools down or down tools just means can you put down your tools? So now down tools means now can you put down your tools? Stop working. I've got to tell you something. Then he says, unfortunately, I'm going to have to shut yous down for an unsafe work site, righto? And this just means, unfortunately, I'm going to have to shut you down for an unsafe work site. So I'm going to have to. He just says I'm a have to. So that's just really laziness. He's not saying I'm going to have to. He's just saying I'm a have to. Use is just, again, very lazy bogan English that you would use in Australia, where instead of just using you plural, in order to make it really obvious that he's talking to multiple people, Australians sometimes add that S on the end of you and say use instead. So I'm going to have to shut yous down. So he's talking about more than one person. And again, that righto is just another way of saying like, all right, okay, righto. Then in that last sentence where he says, see this wooden strut crossbeam, he's talking about the cross itself, and it's a wooden strut crossbeam. It's two beams of wood that are across one another. It's not up to code. This kind of means it's not up to the safety code, so it's not safe. And then he kicks it and he says, see that, but he kind of drops the S there. He doesn't really say the S. He's just, again, that's just one of those accent things that Australians use quite often. He just says, see that. So he's kicking it, broken it, and he says, see, it's not up to code. And I might add that up to has become up to in that sentence. It's not up to code. It's not up to code. So the to, not up to code, has become a ta. Not up to code. See that?
Cool to get me out of this.
Hang on. I got an idea. Righto, you blokes. Bring it in. That's it. Come on. Up you come. Now, down tools. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to shut yous down for an unsafe work site. All right? See this wooden strut and crossbeam? Okay? It's not up to code. See that?
Pays to be in the union.
So in this one, guys, you'll notice again, pays to be in the union. He's dropped the very first part as it pays to be in the union, and he just starts straight away with that verb, pays. And what this means in this example, to pay to be in something, it just means that it's good. So it pays off. It's really good. You'll do well if you're in the union. So instead of literally meaning it'll give you money, it just means that you'll get returns, you'll do well. It'll pay you not in money, but you'll just be well off. You'll be better off. And the union, as a bit of Australian history, the union is the Australian Workers' Union, and it's an organisation that takes care of Australian workers or looks out for them and sort of is a go-between between workers and their employees and vice versa. But in this case, he's saying it pays to be in the union because the guy who came along and said, look, guys, I'm going to have to shut yous down because you've got an unsafe work site. And then he says, see this crossbeam? It's not up to code. He's pretending to be someone from the union who's come and, say, inspected the work site for safety, seeing if there's any issues. And he said it's not up to code. So the crossbeam is obviously unsafe. And he's saying, I'm going to have to shut you guys down. So he's saying to the employer that you can't keep these workers working under this condition. And that's why that guy at the end there says, see, it pays to be in the union. Because we were in the union, the guy came in, shut the worksite down, and now Jesus doesn't have to be crucified.
Pays to be in the union.
No. What say we have an extended smoko and Jesus?
So the next one is, so what say we have an extended smoko and Jesus? The first part here is saying, what say? That's sort of a suggestion, like, what do you say? What do you think? What do you think if we have an extended smoko? And a smoko is just an Australian slang term for smoke break, or a pause in the day, somewhere in the day where you get 5 minutes off to go have a smoke or a cigarette in between working.
Yeah?
How's about you turn some water into wine?
Yeah, I don't think I have to explain. That's pretty obvious. He's just responding like, and Jesus? And he's saying, yeah, how's about you turn some water into wine? How's about is kind of like what say or what do you think about? It's suggesting, what do you think if, how's about you do this? He's suggesting to Jesus that he turn some water into wine. And you'll notice there that instead of saying into, he says into wine. And again, this is just one of those Australian pronunciation changes when we speak a little more quickly. So instead of saying, how's about you turn some water into wine, it becomes, how's about you turn some water into wine.
Yeah?
How's about you turn some water into wine?
Be happy to.
After that, Jesus comes in and says, be happy to. And this is, like we've seen before, one of those examples where the first part of the sentence has been chopped off, and instead of saying I would be happy to or I'd be happy to, he just says be happy to. And it's one of those examples in English where, because it's so obvious that he's talking to Jesus and just asked Jesus what he thinks, what's your response to this, Jesus doesn't need to use the pronoun I to show that he's talking about himself.
Be happy to.
Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
You talking to me?
What do you reckon? Who else he talking to?
Oh, keep it down, boys. I'm still a bit hungover after last night.
Yeah, that last supper nearly was me last supper.
Hold your horses. I'm doing all the heavy lifting here.
Anyway, what's this bloody cross business about?
Oh, they're going to take me up the top of this hill and whack me up on it.
What are they going to use?
Nails.
You're kidding.
What?
No, they're going to nail me up there, and get this, they've only got 3 nails.
Hang on a sec. If you're getting nailed to the cross, you won't be able to play on Saturday.
Oh,
Jesus.
Jesus, mate! We're going to get crucified!
Sorry, guys, I can't help. I need a miracle to get me out of this.
Hang on. I got an idea. Righto, you blokes. Bring it in. That's it. Come on. Up you come. Now, down tools. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to shut you down for an unsafe work site. All right? See this wooden strut and crossbeam? OK? It's not up to code. See that?
Pays to be in the union.
No. What say we have an extended smoko and Jesus?
Yeah?
How's about you turn some water into wine?
Be happy to.
See you later!